Ladies and gentlemen, mesmers and rangers, norns and chars of all shapes and sizes, welcome back, or welcome to, the free-to-play world of Guild Wars 2. The game where you can slay dragons, experience a pretty damn good storyline, and then spend way too much time trying to dye your armor. Whether you're a brand new player or somebody considering a return, today's question begs to be answered: is Guild Wars 2 still worth playing? Yes. Okay, there's more. So let's just start from the beginning. Guild Wars 2 has 5 unique races to choose from and 9 different professions. Starting with the humans, they're kind of like the plain bagel of the game for players who just want to stick to that more standard race. You've been human your whole life and that's not about to change now. Next we have the Norn. If regular humans just don't cut it for you and you're looking for something bigger, stronger, and you really like Vikings, this one is perfect for you. The next one is the Char. Big, fluffy, grumpy cats with a bit of a drinking problem. Their personality and thirst for power might make your own cat look like an angel. From a totally unbiased perspective, this is probably the best choice. I mean, come on, they're big cats. How can you not like that? And of course, we can't forget about the Sylvari, which are kind of like the leafy love child of a tree and an elf. I don't know, I don't usually play that one. Last but definitely not least, we have the Asura. They're like pocket-sized geniuses with egos that are bigger than their tiny frames. So now that we definitely settled on the cat, let's get customizing. Character creation is an adventure in itself. There are a ton of different options to play around with and adjust. This is going to be the place that you can really take your time and make the perfect character for you. First things first, forget about standing in one place and spamming the same old skills. Guild Wars 2 combat is like a high-speed dance party. You're going to be constantly moving, dodging, leaping around the battlefield. And let's be honest, nothing is more satisfying than dodging that one life-threatening attack. Before you get carried away, just remember this is not Dark Souls. Dodging has its limits. You can only dodge 2 times in a row before having to wait for that bar to fill back up again, so choose wisely. The combat itself is something that I think isn't very overwhelming. This isn't a game that it's going to have a million different skills on your screen, which, isn't a bad thing, but to me it's just very beginner-friendly. Even if this is your first MMORPG ever, the game does a really good job of gradually building you up. Whenever I return to games like WoW or Final Fantasy Online and I pop open one of my max level characters, the sight of all of those action bars gives me anxiety. I'm also not very good at the game, so there's that too. That could be why. Then there's the weapons, which play a much bigger role than you might expect. What weapons you have equipped affects what abilities that you have at your disposal. The first 5 abilities that you have are going to change. So using my Guardian's 2-handed sword versus a staff gives very different attacks, and this is where the fun starts. This is going to be where you mess around with all the different combinations that your current profession can use and really fine-tune things to your playstyle. You will be very surprised at some of the differences that you can bring to a class just by swapping around weapons. The best part, you can swap between 2 weapons during combat. There's going to be a bit of a cooldown, but something to keep in mind when you find things you really like. Focusing on the right side, we have the healing ability at number 6. So every class is going to start with the ability to heal themselves, and the remaining 4 are going to be based on the profession that you have. And this part right here is just the tip of the iceberg. There's also something called elite specs, which is a pretty big topic that's going to send us right down the Guild Wars rabbit hole. Now, just so we don't dwell on combat for too long, let's just circle back to this one. But make sure to keep it in mind just because this is one of the coolest parts of the game in my opinion. World vs. World is where epic clashes between 3 massive realms. Or I guess technically servers, but worlds sound a little bit cooler. The game mode enables hundreds of players to engage in a large-scale PvP combat across sprawling battlegrounds. Prepare for battles that span fortresses, open fields, treacherous terrain, as you strive to conquer enemy territories, capture valuable objectives, and claim victory for your server. After all that blood, sweat, and tears, this is a good moment to have. Give yourself a pat on the back because you done did good. Fair warning, once you get started in this, you're going to forget about the rest of the game and basically live in this part. 10,000 is the max level, so grind away because you're going to be here a while. Dynamic events are essentially quests or missions that take place in the game's world. These events range from small-scale skirmishes to massive boss battles. These events inject life into the game's world. Some events might involve defending a village from a band of marauders. while others might require you to escort an important NPC through dangerous territory. The objectives of these events are varied, but they always tie into the larger narrative of the game's world. So if you're in a land filled with undead, your events are going to reflect this. Don't expect fairies to randomly show up, not going to happen. There's a pretty big range in difficulty when it comes to these events. Some of these you can do no problem by yourself, others are going to demand a larger group of people. But the good thing about this is that you can come across one of these and join in without even being part of a group. As long as you get in a couple of hits, you're going to get something for it. So if you're antisocial like me, you're going to fit right into this game. One of the first things that you're going to notice when playing Guild Wars 2 is the sense of community. It's not even about being encouraged to work together through these events or whatever, but it's how helpful most people are. In this game, they have something called mentor badges, and these are going to be people that are dedicating their own time to help answer some of the questions that you might have about the game. Whether it's guidance on game mechanics, character progression, or whatever other questions you might have. The strong community in this game is something I honestly haven't seen in a very long time, and it keeps me coming back for more. Players often come together to assist one another. The community thrives on cooperation and collaboration. Whether you're stuck on something challenging or seeking advice on character builds, you can rely on the kindness of fellow players to lend a helping hand. So never be afraid to ask for help in the game. Circling back to the elite specs, the journey of character progression goes beyond leveling and gear acquisition. Players have the opportunity to unlock the true potential of their professions through elite specializations. This all begins at max level, so if you're new, you'll have something really fun to look forward to once you hit that magic 80 number. They introduce new weapons, mechanics, and a utility skill that breathes new life into once familiar professions. These specialized paths allow players to branch out and tailor their character's abilities to suit their preferred style of combat. And honestly, these professions change dramatically. And you're going to see this in an example in just one sec. I think it's going to make a whole lot more sense. So in this case, we're going to be looking at my engineer. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see just a basic engineer. And he's just going to be exactly what you would expect from a class like this. He's going to be long range. He's going to be all about guns and turrets. And on the right side of the screen, we have the Hollowsmith, which is my elite spec. Now this one is very different from your standard engineer. First things first, this utilizes a brand new weapon, which is the sword. And just to kind of sum things up, just so I don't overwhelm anybody who's maybe never played this game, basically elite specs really redefine your class. We went from turrets and guns to laser beams and explosions. So if you're really interested, definitely go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. You can read all about the different elite specs that you can expect in this game. You start things off with your character's personal story based on the race that you choose at the start. So in the case of the Char, we focus on the Black Citadel and the struggles that they face at that point in time. I'm just trying not to spoil anything for anybody new who maybe hasn't experienced this, so I'm going to try to be as vague as possible. As you progress through your personal story, you'll encounter branching narratives and critical decision points that shape the trajectory of your character's journey. What's really interesting about this is that these choices carry weight and sometimes consequences. You'll find yourself with a lot of decisions to make that leads you down a different path. So the next time you make a new character, you can explore one of the other options that you didn't take the first time around. Of course, over time, you reach a certain point in the story which focuses on Tyria as a whole, as opposed to the Char, for example. And things really escalate more and more from there, especially when you make your way to the expansions. But the base story is pretty enjoyable in my opinion. Tybalt will forever be the most memorable part for me. If you haven't played the game before, you'll see what I mean. The last point that we're going to cover is the mounts. Which sounds like nothing that exciting when I say it out loud, but these are not the kind of mounts that you're going to be used to. Each mount in Guild Wars 2 offers a unique set of abilities that enhance gameplay and opens up new possibilities for exploration. In our first example, we have the Raptor. This is the first mount that you get, and it's going to be a very versatile, kind of like an all-rounder mount. It has incredible speed and the ability to perform a long leap, which you can use to clear large gaps and cover great distances. The next one that we're going to look at is our friendly neighborhood bunny rabbit, who, as you might expect, has a high jumping ability. This is going to allow you to scale towering cliffs and reach elevated platforms. Personally, I use this if I need to discover a point on the map and I'm just too lazy to do it the long way. There are still 6 more if I'm not mistaken, but I'll leave it at that in hopes to pique your curiosity just enough to hit that install button. Basically, each mount does something different. Now, there's definitely a lot more that I could talk about in this game, I honestly can't recommend it enough, but there's only so much that I can cover in one video. If you're interested in more Guild Wars content, or maybe you're a veteran with some words of encouragement for new or returning players, be sure to put it in the comments section below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.